Formerly suicidal redditors, what's something that kept you alive a little while longer and helped you to get through the dark times in your lives? For me, it was just the thought of leaving my friends behind. I had a little group of friends that I would talk to about my problems, and they gave me their support. After I thought about that, I had decided that losing my life wasn't worth it. As my son grew older, it became clearer that he had his own fragility. He has ASD. I know that if I were to have gone through with it, I would have burdened him even more than normal and may have normalized suicide and given him no reason not to do it himself. The devastation my best friend would have felt at being notified of my passing. I love that guy and I'd soldier through anything for him. Guilt. My older brother and I are quite close, and if my parents called him to tell him I killed myself, he'd be broken. I don't want to ruin my brother's life with my suicide. For me, it was the online friends and people who interact with me, because if I do it, they wouldn't be able to have that one person to talk to them when they need it, or have that one person to give them something funny during the week. Just seeing others lighten up when they see something of mine just makes it better. Just try to make it through the day. You can always commit suicide tomorrow. It's dark, but sometimes procrastination is a good thing. Honestly, the fear that I would fuck that up, too, and survive the attempt. I just knew everyone would hate me even more. Brain weasels are lying assholes. No one hated me. My family really did love me. They weren't just saying that because they had to. But at the time, you couldn't convince me. I ground through it a day at a time for a long time. It sucked. I don't know how I managed it, but I did. It was all worth it. The last 14 years have been wonderful. Not without their stresses and struggles here and there. Life still has its bullshit moments and events, but it was worth it to get here. If you're struggling, I wish you luck. There are things on the other side. It does get better. It is worth it. The thought of leaving my dog behind just kept me from going through with the plans I had. Weed. I unfortunately experience suicidal ideation every now and then still. Luckily, I haven't had a major breakdown for a very long time. What keeps me going is knowing that I do want to do things with life. I have dreams. I remind myself that this shitty moment can get better, even though I feel hopeless. A close family member committed suicide, so I know what it does to a family. I guess that is also a big thing. As much as I may feel like a burden to everyone I love in those moments, deep down I know they'd be devastated. Even if my pain would finally end, I wouldn't want to hurt them. I just try and find some sliver of hope. I guess that's why I try and find optimism in everything, as that optimism is my sliver of hope during the bad times. My grandpa would probably have his fourth heart attack, and 2 people dying at once would most probably tear my family apart. Also, my dog would have nobody to play with him. Hopefully life will get better while they are still here, because I don't know what's gonna keep me going once they're gone. One of my friends came to stay with me the first time I wanted to kill myself. The second and third time, where I actually attempted, she took me to the hospital and came to visit often. Since then it's been lots of therapy. And more recently, due to chronic pain, I've been living for my chosen family and my little nephew, who says he misses me when I walk out the door for a few minutes. And wants mom and dad to call me when I'm not with them because he wants me there. I can't let him down, I can't hurt him that way. My dog. I couldn't stand the thought of her being abandoned to a shelter again. She is old, doesn't have much of her bottom teeth left, and has a cauliflower ear from a hematoma. She is also a bully breed. She was waiting for a while before I adopted her. Poor girl has bad separation anxiety and will scream at me when I drive away sometimes. Since owning her, I've come close a few times. But each time I think of the fact that she will have no one, and I know how bad that feels. So I stop. I go and cuddle her. Give her treats and play tug. For an old dog with very few teeth, she still wins, and thank her. She doesn't know what for, but she knows I'm still there, and that's all that matters. My dog. And my animals. I surround myself with life that depends on me for this reason. I have had issues in a few years, but they definitely have / did make a difference. Not hurting the last people that care about me. I already hurt enough inside, I don't want my issues hurting other people's lives. Star Wars. It got me through the darkest time of my life. I tried taking my life in high school but eventually failed. I still have very dark moments, but it's much better, for now at least. Star Wars was my escape. My light of hope in darkness and a different world where I haven't been as abused as I was. A friend I met 2 weeks before thinking about it, she helped me through the hard time, but then she threw me out of her life when I told her I loved her. The fact that I'll probably be punished for ruining my body in the next life, whatever that may be to you, and I'll be punished here for it, so I was just stuck for years without knowing what to do. I'll admit, I'm still kinda stuck. I'm a perfectionist who is only marginally close to perfection in school and work, despite putting in extreme effort. Despite that perfectionism being the cause of my suicidal thoughts, it's also why I haven't followed through. I find suicide cowardice, and being my biggest critic. I'll be damned if I accuse myself of being a coward. I fucking hate cowards. My parents, sisters, and cocaine, which I don't recommend, but I would be lying if it didn't get me through some dark times. I think I did permanent damage to my heart between that addiction and getting COVID, so I definitely don't recommend. However, I think antidepressant qualities should be studied in regards to the dopamine system, as SSRIs completely failed for me. 3 things. 1. My family, my wife and pets. 2. Finding the right meds. 3. The amazing crisis team. Sadly, it took my one and only proper I'm gonna kill myself moment to access any help. Being poor, I rely on the NHS, and the mental health services, especially in my area, are woefully underfunded, especially for a disease that is so prevalent these days. It took 10 years for a doctor to even diagnose my anxiety, and when depression hit, I was told it would be at least 18 months before I could see a counselor. Within that 18 months, things obviously got far worse, and it took a long time to find the right meds. Sadly, the NHS psychiatric hospital that provides the crisis team was shut down, leaving a handful of counsellors to deal with an epidemic in a county of hundreds of thousands. Getting a dog. If I offed myself, my dog would be left alone with no one to care for her, and I just couldn't have done that to her. Not only would she lose her safety, but she'd most likely be tossed around from person to person, as she is very high maintenance, and many I know wouldn't have the time, energy or patience to deal with her until the end. I've asked many if they'd be able to look out for her if anything were to happen to me, and most say yes to be nice or so I won't worry, but I know they'd just give her away to the next person because she's what they'd call a problem dog, when she's just a very high energetic dog. I couldn't have killed myself, because my dog would be the one who'd have to deal with the consequences. I started helping other suicidal people. There's a subreddit for that, actually. And as I gave advice/support to those suicidal people, I realized that I could use a lot of that advice/support for myself. Saving other people's lives gave me a purpose, and it saved my life. My twin sister. I had a very rough time in middle school. I went to the worst middle school in a city that we had just moved to from our hometown, and was an odd, socially awkward emo kid. The kids in my school were cruel. They found any excuse they could to make fun of me, from my clothes to my tits to the way I talked. I didn't have any friends, and I felt like the world would be better off without me. For months, I gathered up any pills that I could find laying around the house, until I had a small trinket box full of them. I spent that time writing letters to everyone I loved. My mom, my dad, my grandma, my brother, and even my younger cousins. I put off writing my sisters for a long time. Finally, I decided it was time. I talked my mom into letting me stay home from school, and once I was alone I sat on my bedroom floor, prepared to write my final and most important letter before finally putting an end to the pain. I stared at the blank paper, and looked back on the short life we had lived together. My sister was fiercely loyal to me our entire lives. She was my best friend, my protector, and my rock. She would do anything for me, and she proved it every day. Throughout our parents' divorce, our painful move from everything we knew and loved, and our years of struggling to adjust to a city life we weren't prepared for, it was always me she thought about first. I remembered her hunting down my bullies after school, most of whom were boys 3 times her size, filled with rage and hyper-focused on protecting me. I remember her holding me for hours while I cried. I remembered crawling in her bed at night, even after we were too old to comfortably fit, and drifting off with her arms around me. I thought about all the times she had stood by me when no one else would, and how hard she fought to shield me from the painful world around us, and I realized I couldn't do that to her. There were no words I could write on that paper to justify leaving her in a world without me. I knew she would never recover from the loss of her other half, and that she would always blame herself for not doing enough to protect me. I knew she would put the weight of my death on her shoulders, and would never forgive herself for not being able to stop it. So I did what she had been doing our entire lives. I put my love for my sister before my desire to stop the pain, and for years I only stuck around for her. She saved my life, and I will never be able to repay her for that.